All right, guys, the battle of the century has officially begun. Drake dropped his diss track against Kendrick Lamar, and I can't lie, it's pretty nice. But at the same time, this could be detrimental to Drake's career if Kendrick responds, which I think he most likely will. Now, we're going to break down this song and talk about why this could be detrimental to Drake's career, but he made some mistakes from the beginning. So let's jump into it. Now, the first thing is this track was released in a very strange way, and I don't mean that in a good way, right? This morning, mysteriously, this Drake song just leaked online, and everyone thought it was AI. The vocal sounded very rough. The bars didn't sound too advanced. People were confused whether this was actually Drake or if this was fake. And a couple hours later, a different version of the track leaked, which sounded a little more polished, had some different bars on it, and a whole different beat. And at this point, it seems pretty obvious that this is really Drake. This is not AI. And to me, it's just strange that he chose to release it in this way. And if he didn't actually release it, this is slightly a bad look, right? Because either this means that someone in his camp or in his organization is leaking his music, or it means that he wasn't confident enough to officially release this and post about it on his social media and put his stamp on it. And instead he chose to, mysteriously leak it online and kind of let, public perception or public criticism sink in first before he, even mentions this track at all. So that's not a great look. If you're not confident enough to, put it on wax, put it straight to those streaming platforms or SoundCloud, or just officially say, yeah, this is my diss track. This is my response to Kendrick and basically the whole rap game. If you're not confident enough to say that off the rip, it kind of shows like you're just waiting to see, the public opinion first before you even address if this is, even real or if it's fake or not, which isn't a great look. It shows he's not too confident to, step out into the ring and kick this battle off, right? Now, aside from the way it was released, I do think that, honestly, I gotta keep it real, it's kind of a tough track. Like, this is definitely better than J. Cole's response. I mean, granted, there was more people going at Drake. There was more rappers, even producers that, everyone was going at Drake, right? Metro Boomin, Rick Ross, Kendrick, The Weeknd, A$AP Rocky now, Future. Like, you had all these different guys going at Drake. So he had a lot more to work with in this song than J. Cole did. But I kind of said this in a previous video. I knew that if Drake came out, he wouldn't just keep this as a battle between him and Kendrick. He's going to involve all the other rappers. And it's pretty obvious that he can go toe-to-toe, bar for bar with guys like Rick Ross or Future or A$AP Rocky. Like, we've even seen that on tracks before, right? So I'm not too concerned that he could beat them in battles. And if he drops a diss track, which he did, he could come at them lyrically better than they could come at him. With Kendrick, though, I think he said, he said some entertaining stuff on this song. He did throw some decent jabs at Kendrick, but I don't think anything he said will match up against what Kendrick is about to drop on him. And, there's been rumors that Kendrick already has a diss track written up. He's ready to drop it. And I guess this just gives him that ammo, that kick to actually, partake in this beef and go all out in it. Now, we won't focus on, how Kendrick or when Kendrick will respond. Drake waited a couple weeks, so I think it's only right that no one could really judge Kendrick if he kind of takes his time right now to calculate what his next move is going to be. But in terms of what Drake said in this song, he threw out some interesting points that, I think kind of knocked Future or Rick Ross or really any other artist out of this conversation. I think he strategically had some shots aimed at them so he could kind of get rid of them right away. And now this beef just really lies between him and Kendrick. Now with Future, basically he just said, I gave you your biggest hits. I gave you your first hits. You're not a big enough artist to go tour worldwide or overseas. You're not an international artist. You're only big in America. And, you're like a son to me. Like I'm just bigger than you commercially. I'm, a better rapper than you. Like I'm levels above you. There's levels to this. With Metro Boomin, he basically gave him one bar. He's just like, yo, shut up and stay on the drums. And apparently, according to DJ Academics, it's known in the industry that Metro isn't actually talented as a producer. The only thing that's nice about him as a producer is his drums. So Drake's bar could be in reference to that. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, then it makes this line a little more significant, a little stronger. He kind of came at The Weeknd too, saying that The Weeknd's manager, Cash XO, spends The Weeknd's money on other people, which isn't a good look. You don't want your manager going out and spending the money that you earned on other guys. That's kind of a weird look. But I think before we touch on what he said about Kendrick, I think the best diss that Drake had in this song, the best set of bars, is how he was going at Rick Ross. He basically said, people really got me out here talking like I'm 50. That's in reference to, he's talking a lot of shit here, just like 50 Cent usually does on Instagram. And that's in reference to the fact that 50 Cent and Rick Ross have had a very long-standing beef. Then he said, people really got me out here rapping what I'm living, which is another reference to Rick Ross, because if you guys didn't know, before Rick Ross was a rapper, he was a cop. So a lot of people say everything he raps about, being a gangster, being in the streets, dealing drugs, whatever it is, all that stuff isn't really how he was living because he was a cop before he was a rapper. So a lot of what he he says is fake. So Drake's kind of referencing that in this bar. Then he says, I might take your latest girl and cuff her like I'm Ricky. Now that's another play on words with the cuff, because Rick Ross was a cop, obviously handcuffs, cuff. And Drake actually invited Rick Ross's ex personally to one of his shows and brought her backstage. So that line was pretty tough. Then he says, can't believe he jumping in. That man turning 50. Rick Ross, he's almost 50. Every song that made it on the chart, he got it from Drizzy. Now that's pretty hard because it's true. And we'll get into a lot of these bars that are kind of hypocritical later on. But if he said one thing in this song, I think that's the most important thing that he said that kind of discredits anyone like Future or Rick Ross or even The Weeknd, because when they were coming up, not really Rick Ross, but when Future and The Weeknd were coming up, Drake gave them a lot of their biggest hits at the beginning. Drake was on Tony Montana by Future in 2011. That was Future's first hit. He was on Crew Love with The Weeknd, and The Weeknd was all over Take Care. That's kind of how he initially blew up on a mainstream level. And over the years, if you look at Future's biggest hits, they all feature Drake, except for Mask Off. So what he's saying here really resonates and really kind of shows that Rick Ross, The Weeknd, or Future can't really say anything to Drake because Drake has given them some of the biggest moments in their careers. So he kind of eliminates them from this competition just by that bar alone. But now let's dissect what he was saying to Kendrick, right? You know, he threw out a couple shots making fun of, you know, Kendrick's small feet, saying he wears a size 7, you know, calling him a midget. And that kind of just shows like he really doesn't have much dirt on Kendrick if he has to resort to, you know, Kendrick's height or the size of his feet. I mean, keep this on rapping, right? He did kind of have some bars that I think had some validity to them, right? He's talking about how Maroon 5 needs a verse or Taylor Swift needs a verse, because Kendrick did songs with both those artists. And, you know, it's kind of like you're selling out a bit. You know, Kendrick is always making music that's not really focused on gaining commercial appeal or getting those chart-topping hits. He's really focused on the quality and substance of what's being discussed in the music. So it's kind of ironic that he went and worked with Maroon 5 or Taylor Swift and made, you know, very pop, very bubblegum hits. And Drake is kind of insulting him for that, right? Then he's saying that there's no big three, like Kendrick's not in the big three. Instead, it's SZA, which, I mean, I guess from a numbers perspective, SZA's last album was bigger than Kendrick's, but like SZA makes R&B and pop music, right? Kendrick makes very lyrical hip hop, which won't do as well on the charts as SZA's would. So you can't really compare two artists like that. Then he tries saying that also Travis Scott and 21 Savage have replaced Kendrick in the big three, which, I mean, listen, if you want to talk about album sales, fine. But like, if you want to talk about total career album sales, Kendrick still has them beat with just 2 projects alone, Damn and Good Kid, Mad City. And if you want to talk about probably who's selling out more tickets for tours, I would argue Kendrick is probably outselling guys like 21 and maybe even Travis on a worldwide level. And from a lyrical standpoint, like Kendrick just washes both of them, right? So you're comparing Kendrick right now to SZA, Travis Scott, and 21 Savage. That's not who he should be going up against. There's no validity, in my opinion, to those bars. To me, that's an excuse. You're just basically saying, like, you know, you're trying to eliminate him from the top 3, the big 3, but there's no eliminating him, right? You're going to replace him with SZA? Like, that's just not realistic. Some other decent bars he had in here were, you know, he's talking about what's a prince to a king, be a son. That's a good bar. That's in retaliation to what Kendrick said on the Like That verse, where he said Prince outlived Michael Jackson, because Drake always compares himself to Mike Jackson, and then Kendrick compares himself to Prince. So Drake is saying here, basically, what's a prince to a king? He's a son, so Kendrick's like his son. Plus, Prince Jackson was the name of Michael Jackson's son, so it's kind of like a play on words. Pretty creative bar. He also says he gets more love in Kendrick City than Kendrick gets. Now, there's 2 bars in here that I kind of take a little bit of issue with, and I'll tell you why. Those are the bars where, firstly, he says, I'd be with some bodyguards like Whitney. This is in relation to Kendrick's wife. She was in a movie called Bodyguard Whitney. And the reason why I think there's kind of an issue with this is the exact same way Drake got destroyed by Pusha T, right? He brought up by name Pusha T's wife, and from there it was just all out lyrical warfare, and then Drake backed up of that beef and said Pusha T kind of took it too far when he was insulting Drake's family and Drake's producer 40 and all that stuff. So, I mean, look, if you're gonna name drop someone's wife, then back out of that battle because you think he took it too far. But then on this record, you're coming back and doing the same exact thing by calling out this guy's wife. It's like, didn't you learn your lesson the first time? I don't know. To me, that just seems like a low blow, and that bar wasn't that impressive. And then throughout the song, it's kind of like a chorus. He keeps going, you know, drop down and give me 50. He keeps saying, Top told you to drop down and give me 50, which is, you know, play on words. Drop down and give me 50. That's like someone commanding you to go and do 50 push-ups. So he's kind of saying, you know, your record boss is, you know, telling you what to do. But even deeper than that, he's basically saying that because Kendrick and Top Dog, TDE, had a 50-50 split on all the profits of Kendrick's music, he's basically poking fun at the fact that he earns more money than Kendrick from from music because Kendrick has TDE who takes 50% of all the profits from Kendrick's music. Now, this bar, while it is, a clever bar and it's like a fun kind of hook that he put in this song, I do like the sound of it. It would be a lot more hard-hitting if Drake wasn't in an even worse situation. Because if you guys don't remember, Drake was initially signed to Young Money, which is a label under Cash Money. And Pusha T actually dissed Drake about this. He's signed to one label that's signed to another label, which is Young Money, that's signed to Cash Money, and then Cash Money is signed to Universal. So that's one label, Universal, who owns another label, Cash Money, who owns another label, Young Money. So imagine how many hands are in the pot of Drake's music revenue if he's working under 3 labels. And there's been tons of issue with Birdman ripping artists off, not paying them, taking their money. There's literally a lawsuit that Lil Wayne filed against Birdman, where he said Birdman and Cash Money had a 50% split of all the profits that Young Money generated, which means that any music that Drake dropped on Young Money, 50% of the profits went to Cash Money, which means they went to Birdman. So already, your old music, all your biggest albums, Take Care, Nothing Was the Same, Scorpion, Views, all these albums were released on Young Money. That means Birdman took 50% of all the profits from those albums. So you're basically coming at Kendrick for being signed to a record label, taking 50% of his music, but you are also signed to a record label taking 50% of your music. So there's kind of his hypocrisy there. It's the same thing when J. Cole told Kendrick that he makes, music that puts people to sleep, but J. Cole used to be known as the guy whose music put everyone to sleep. So it's just hypocritical, right? And I said this in a couple previous videos, like these guys don't have much ammo against Kendrick. That's why they have to come at him with bars that also apply to themselves, right? J. Cole coming at him with the sleepy music bar, Drake coming at him with the, drop down and give me 50. These bars also apply to Drake and J. Cole. They're saying things aimed at Kendrick, but these same disses could be applied to them as well. So it's just hypocritical, and I don't think the impact of these bars will be as hard-hitting because of the hypocrisy or legitimacy of them. Now, another thing that's kind of interesting is yesterday on the new Future and Metro Boomin album, The Weeknd had a feature where he was coming at Drake, and he said, they can never come at me, baby, because they got leaks in their operation. And it's interesting because this diss track was leaked today, but yesterday on the Metro Boomin album, The Weeknd was saying, they can't come and diss me because they have leaks coming from their operation. So it's almost like The Weeknd knew this song was gonna leak. Now, I don't think this was planned. I don't think Drake leaked this. I think someone outside of Drake's camp got access to this song and put it out for the world to hear. Think about it. If Drake leaked this song, why would he first put out the rough version, right? Because at first this song came out, it had a whole different beat. The vocals didn't sound mastered. It just sounded very unfinished. And then the second version came out like 2 hours later. Why would Drake leak 2 different versions of the same song? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't think Drake released this. I think this was something he had in the tuck that he was maybe planning on releasing, and I think it somehow got leaked. And listen, all in all, I do think this is a solid diss. I think it's a nice, first round diss to this battle. Because remember, right? Last time in my last video, I said that Kendrick's like that verse. There was just light bars on that song. They weren't really going deep at Drake. And I stick with that statement. I think that like that was the warm up to be like, yo, come and diss me, come and try me. And this is Drake's response. And it's good for a first round. I don't think this is, his next back-to-back. I don't even think this is as hard-hitting as Duppy Freestyle. I think Drake has had much harder-hitting diss tracks. And honestly, I think if Kendrick is going to partake in this beef, which I do think he will, I think Drake has to come a lot harder than this. No Diddy. I think Drake needs more dirt on Kendrick or more clever ways to say what he's saying, because Kendrick, you already know, is going to come with some clever ass bars. He probably has a lot more dirt or ammo on Drake than Drake has on Kendrick, and Kendrick's just a better technical rapper. So you're going up against a giant here. I like that Drake, kind of got Metro Boomin and Future and Rick Ross out of the way. Like, he should not keep going at those guys. I think get your initial bars off on them and, keep this between you and Kendrick, because that's really what this is, right? It's a battle between who is the best rapper, who is in that number one spot. And based off the ammo Drake had in this song, while I do think it was a decent track, I don't think this is enough to claim that number one spot. I think Kendrick's going to come back and say something a lot worse. And let's just leave it at that. Hip hop is back. You already know Kendrick's going to come back with something way harder than this. And I'm just excited to see the back and forth between these guys. I'm very curious how it'll play out. I don't think Drake could back out of this like he did with Pusha T, because this is just hip hop. This is just bars, right? There's nothing deeper than that. And Drake would look like a massive clown if he backed down for the second beef in a row. So I don't think he will. I think this will be a long played out thing, and I can't wait to witness it, man. But what do you guys think? Do you think Drake got Kendrick with this? Do you think he wins the first round, if this even was the first round? When do you think Kendrick's coming back to respond to this? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Now, just as I finished making that video, Rick Ross already responded with a diss track, so this could get interesting. I might have downplayed the actual level of competition that Rick Ross can bring to this battle, and he kind of responded with some hard-hitting stuff. He said Drake had, plastic surgery on his nose, and he sent a cease and desist to French Montana, and he went at him in a couple ways because Drake also said that Rick Ross was his favorite guy to rap with. So yeah, he has a little bit of dirt on Drake. So this could get really interesting, man, especially if there's a couple MCs that are really bringing their best foot forward to this battle. So yeah, I'm super pumped, man.